When did you move in here? When did you move into this place?
2.5 months ago.
This Chavish?
2 weeks after I became a Kollel. Can I pour you some wine?
Huh?
Can I pour you some wine? Some wine. Can I pour you some wine?
Oh, thank you. It's not Pesach at night. L'chaim. L'chaim. Why don't you people say l'chaim?
Hey,
Every yontif, we tell again the sipur, the story of the yontif. Comes to Pesach, so in Haggadah, in Kriyas HaTorah, Sukkos, and Chalton Neumann long. I want to go back almost 70 years. We're starting now the 70th year of Yud Shvat. First of all, Asiri Bishvat, the Yistalkus from the Rebbe Rayatz. It's interesting that Bishasta Histalkus, in the Frierdiker Rebbe's room, there was a Kohen, a Levi, and Yisrael. Shonabel Eichon Olav Shalom was the Kohen. Reb Shmuel Levitten was the Levi. And Dr. Zellickson was the Yisrael. When Dr. Zellickson came, it was a few minutes, 10 minutes before the Histalkus. And Rabbi Shmuel told us that as they were standing there, the Frierdiker Rebbe was laying, and then he tried to pick himself up, and he tells these three people, Ratavit mir. And after he finished those words, the Frierdiker Rebbe laid down on the cushion and said, Gewende Histalkus. Somebody went to tell the Rebbe when he was leaving on 346. When the Rebbe came, the Rebbe asked that Yingalite Bochnim should go to all sections of Brooklyn to be Mefas and be Mediyah. This one should go to Williamsburg, this one to Borough Park, this one to Brownsville. The Rebbe hat voneinander geschickt alle, and the Rebbe said, man soll Elam sagen, everybody told everybody, that he asked that everybody should come to 770. Then when it came to this Baum von Davening, so the Rebbe and the Rashag said the Kaddish for Davening, and then the Rebbe went up to the first floor, to the floor, the apartment, so to say, of the Frierdiker Rebbe. He sat down in the hallway, and he asked to stay next to him in case he needs a shlichus. He should be somebody be there to help to go. And the Rebbe would go into the Frierdiker Rebbe's room every 20, 25 minutes. One time he comes out and he tells me, get Dr. Zollickson immediately. So I told the Rebbe, Dr. Zollickson is not here. So is there another doctor here? Yes, there was a doctor that lives on Vulcan Avenue. I forget his name for the moment. So he comes up, and the Rebbe takes him into the Frierdiker Rebbe's bedroom when the Rebbe was laying on the bed, and he said, I think that people made a mistake. The Schwer lebt noch. So the doctor asked him, what makes you say so? He says, don't you see that the Rebbe's stomach is moving up and down? The Chasima, there's highest. So this doctor asked me to leave the room. And he told me later that he examined the Rebbe, and he explained to the Rebbe that the body has ear. And even after his talkus was on the Shoma, it takes time till the air leaves the body, and that's what. But what he was telling me, he says that the way he called him, he didn't want to accept the fact of the Shver on Yishto. So also, he can't happen to feel that the Rebbe is still here. He said, try to push it. What's interesting, that during Shabbos, the Rebbe did not leave one tear. He didn't cry at all. Mitzvah Shabbos, we davened Ma'ariv upstairs in the Zal, the Kleiner Zal. And as the Rebbe came out of the Zal, and he was standing near the elevator, he burst out with such bechiyas, you must have heard it. He was standing and saying, bechiyas hatzumis, mamish schrecklich. And the ältere Chassidin went over, said, Golnish is geholfen. He stood about 10 minutes, was gegangen. Then finally the Rebbe went into his room, and he called in Rabbi Rochner Alav Sholem and Rabbi Simpson, and he said, ich darf übergeben über die ganze Welt, was Geshem. And then he asked Rabbi Simpson that the Chevra Kadisha should decide what time to be the Levaya, but they should take in mind that there should be a chance that people who are living a little bit further from the Yub can come into the Levaya. The Rebbe did not want to be by the Tara. The Rebbe was downstairs. And then when everything was ready, so the Rebbe told them that they should take the Zaydin Beged, the Shabbos, the Beged that the Shver had, and they should cover the Oren with that, not with what you put down, the other Parechas, whatever you call it, the Chevra Kadisha put down. They should cover it with the Zaydin Beged, with the Shabbos, the Beged that the Shver. And he asked if possible to carry the Rebbe to Bedford Avenue to the yeshiva from Kingston, from Eastern Parkway. There was a tremendous crowd, and each move they made, they had to hold, because they were pushing each other, and the order almost fell once and twice. When they came to Brooklyn Avenue, so Rabbi Jacobson went over to the Rebbe, gesagt, that's a sakana, that we should walk with the order, because it makes a to put the order into the car, into the whatever it's called, and we all walked to Bedford Avenue. When we came to the Beis HaChaim, and they put the Oren into the caver, but the Zaydin Beged was not there. I was standing right next to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave me a shrei. That's how he screamed. A few minutes later, the Beged flew into the cave. Ich sagte, jetzt kann ich machen die Kvure. then I get some Machna for the Rebbets and Hamadina and the two daughters and so on. Huh? The Rebbe Geshem was am Wagen in Keva. We thought that the Rebbe Geshem is all taking them Oren. No, like it's also living them, it should lay next to the Keva, not on top of the Oren. Walking, he wanted it on top of the Oren. But Bishas, they had to make the Kavura, what they could almost, he showed, like this not weg, or nicht auf den Oren. What the Pshat of that is, they'll doch Simon nicht verstanden, don't know, but man heißt auf dem Vogel, wie man sagt. When they came back, the Rebbe gave me a hero that we soll sitzen Shiva Einsho and we soll reisen Kriye, but they should make Kriye in a way that you should be able to sew it back. Weil Pidin ist doch nicht Emes Avelen, weil Pi Alochen hat nicht gewollt. The Rebbe wore the beged with the Kriya a whole week. The Rebbe had his Shabbat gesagt in the beged, and he wore it on the right side, the Kriya. He wore the beged with the Kriya a whole week, but he told everybody that the next morning, everybody should come with regular jackets, or Nishkan Kriya jackets, but he himself wore it a whole week. One thing that gesagt, that he will not start davening with his minion before he knows that the Rashag had his minion. Because most of the people, I would say 99% of the people, wanted to daven with his minion. And he was afraid that the Shvagot Nishavim came minion, hat geheißen ausrufen, as he will not start his minion in the Shachas Mincha Ma'ariv unless he knows that the Rashag already had his minion. Shame, I'm going now. Ich weiß, wir haben uns angeheben schon die ganze Seder wegen nochmal mal am Morgen mit den alle Sachen. A whole year we all know that the Rebbe refused and didn't want to hear about Normal Mokim. But being that I'm trying to pride myself because I was there, being that I was working in the office during the year, with the Rebbe geführt of this TV. There were a light that wrote to the Rebbe that they want to have Yechidus. And the Rebbe accepted them. Once he accepted them, he was Kaveya, went to come in, at what time? And when they came in, the Rebbe was sitting at the desk, like he was sitting later after Yud Shvat, and had genommen dem Zettel und hat geweint. But for the first few weeks, the Rebbe refused to take a pigeon. The Hecht family, their father, the geheißen Rabbi Yeshia Hecht. I don't know if you. And he had a very serious problem during that time. So he came to 770, and he went into the Rebbe, and he comes out to me, says, I can't and give the pigeon over there. The Hecht family were Belzach Siddim. And he took the pigeon and he said, the Rebbe, ich bet, ihr sollt nehmen den pigeon. I'm asking you should take the pigeon. And the Rebbe put out his alter the book and ran into Reb Shmuel. For was steht das? Noch da Bänkel noch verstehen. Als ein Rebbe ist nur mit der Kapitel. Ein Rebbe kann sein mit einem halben Rekel, mit einem ganzen Rekel. Nicht das ist der Rebbe. So what are you worried about? Don't worry. Everything. Maybe you know why the Rebbe came with a beggar today. So he tells me, I'll tell you, but on it tonight, there's those candidates that say, nobody has to know. Of 5 Litvish Rosh Hashivas. And he told me, call each of these Rosh Hashivas individually and tell them that I'm asking him to come to a. And the Rebbe smiled. When I made the first call to the first Rosh Hashiva, at the Lubavitch Rebbe, all the other 4 Rosh Hashivas, he called, and he told them, the Lubavitch Rebbe is inviting you to a meeting. But it's coming. But don't tell number 1 that the other 4 are coming. Each one should only know for themselves. And they came, it was Tesla of Elul. And they went into the Rebbe, they were there for about an hour. The Rebbe Mazkir gewesen, after Yud Shvat, Tovshin Yud Aleph, was like this. As to say that Yeshiva before 9:30, he came with his Eidene Beged, and he went into the Zal, and he saw the Maim B'Bos Eligani, when the Shverot HaResh gegeben, the Maim von Bos Eligani. Then the Rebbe announced that Wednesday night, 9:30, there will be a Farbrengen Lekobed. He sent out a message that he wants to see all the Montreal guests that came from Montreal. He wants to see them before the Farbrengen. So all the Ingolite that came from Montreal went into the Rebbe about 8:45. Before don't leave the room before the Rebbe promises that he's going to undertake unlimited Nesiyas. Speak to the Rebbe that Klal Yisrael and Chassidim Frat are requesting and betting sich on the Rebbe to unlimited Nesiyas. We asked, so Rav Hendel said that before we left, they didn't want to say what the Rebbe told them, but before we left, so I said, ich bin der Rav von der Kehille, ist Beshem Klal Yisrael, Beshem Chassidim über die ganze Welt, beten wir, als heim bei Nacht beim Farbrengen, soll der Rebbe unlimited Nesiyas. Everybody versteht Yiddish, or they versteht schon English? He asked the name of Chassidim that everyone should, the Rebbe should accept it. And the Rebbe told him, you read Narishkeiten, you speaking foolishness, and he put his head down on the table and started to cry, and arise von dannen. Get arise von dannen. And everybody walked out, and that's what happened. Came 9:30, the Rebbe came to the Farbrengen, so there was the table where the Rebbe sat, and behind him was, and then there were tables coming out. So between the first table and the second table, right next and opposite the Rebbe, was standing Rav Handel, Rav Mendel Tenenbaum, Rabbi Weinberg, and I was standing also. One Sikha, Mehed Gonish, no hint of the Nesiyas. A second Sikha, nothing. A third Sikha. So I told the Ingolites there, ask the Rebbe, I didn't believe, I started trying to say it quietly, that the Rebbe shouldn't hear. So the Rebbe turns to the 3 or 4 Rabbanim, and he tells them, tell this young man that he's speaking foolishness. That they should tell me as a Chayav Narishkeit. And then they started singing a nigun. A few minutes, I tell the Ingolite, there's going to be a mimer. Right after the nigun, sagt der Rebbe, du schwerende mimer von Ilula Bosse, der gar nicht ist Kalle, und sie waren ein mimer. And then the Rebbe said there's going to be a hemshich, and then Rav Nemtsov, who was sitting by the table, he jumped up on the bench and jumped up on the table, and he screamed out, Chassidim, we have a Rebbe, and he made the Birchen Shechayone B'Shem Malchus. And everybody was focusing on the Rebbe. If the Rebbe was going to tell him to sit down, and the Rebbe listened, and the Rebbe answered, Amen. So mainly we knew, and then Rebbe Nemtsov called it up. When the Rebbe is going to start the second part of the Maimah, everybody should stand up. So they asked me later, how did you know that the Rebbe is going to say a Maimah? So I told them, all the Rabbeim, before they started saying a Maimah, they took it. By the Rebbe Rashab, the Chassidim said that many times the Rebbe Rashab, in the middle of saying the Maimah, he stopped and started pulling like this. Before the Rebbe said the Maimah, I saw the Rebbe put his hand under the table. I saw he took out the tikkun. Admor, and the Rebbe's two names, Shlita Shneerson, Lubavitch, and Rabbi and Secretariat. Rebbe Chodakon was Mazkir to it. On the stationery of the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe says Lubavitch, and the Rebbe without a mem. And that's how things started to move. But there's one thing that very few people know, if anybody knows. 2 weeks before that Yud Shvat, the Rebbe sat every night with Rabbi Chodakov in the Rebbe's room for 4 or 5 hours. Rabbi Chodakov would never say what was going on over there. But we had a feeling, when I was in the office and I saw what was going on, that the Rebbe was preparing what should be the Seder after the Kabbalah's Hanasiyas, who should be the Mazkir and who should work for the Rebbe and what the Rebbe is going to do. So for 2 weeks, Nochanand, every night, Rabbi Chodakov would go into the Rebbe after Ma'ariv, and he would sit for 4 or 5 hours every night. That meant that there were already 2 weeks before. 3 days before that Yud Shvat, Rabbi Kazanowski Olav Sholem came to the Rebbe and he said, I had a cholem last night. Maybe you heard, I'll say it anyway. So the Rebbe said, what was your cholem? He said that... huh?
Heet Schlimme Haaren. Is an Einikel.
As an Enoch.
Heet Schlimme Haaren.
We're cousins. You know that we're cousins? So he says that he tells the Rebbe that I was in the Friedrich Rebbe's room. The Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe was there, you was there, and I was there. And the Friedrich Rebbe turns to you, and he says, Ma titzak elai. Why are you telling people to be makushel to me? Daber el b'nei Yisrael, heb on zogen, see this vayiden, v'yisou, vet yegenen kegen Moshiach. He tells the Rebbe that I had a dream, and it was in the Friedrich Rebbe's office, and the Rebbe was there, there was the Rebbe, and he was there, and the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, turns to the Rebbe and says, Ma titzek alai, why are you telling people to be mekusha to me? Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Start saying chsidus to Yidden, v'yisou, that ye gain and kegen Moshiach. He thought the Rebbe was going to tell him, get out of here. The Rebbe said, wait a minute. He opened up his drawer from the desk, and he took out 2 telegrams, the Rebbe. This was 2-3 days before Yud Shvat. These 2 telegrams were from Rav Herzog, who was the Ashkenazi Rav Roshi from Eretz Yisrael, and from the Sfardish Rav Roshi, and each of them wrote to the Rebbe Mazel Tov al Nisius Chabad, and they gave the Rebbe a bracha of Yom Mamlachtoi, and the Rebbe they gave the Rebbe brachas on the Inyan from the Nisius. And the Rebbe shows these 2 telegrams to Rabbi Kazanovsky. In other words, he was already affirming, and he was already telling him, das ist in der Meise, das wird der Schwere gesagt. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, when Yisrael was a heintige Parsha, the Parsha is Shirin. Daber b'nei Yisrael, when Yisrael, hat gesagt, so Rabbi Kazanovsky understood that the reason why the Rebbe is showing him these 2 telegrams, that you should know that I heard what you told me, and it's being accepted, and kach v'zayin. We saw that the Rebbe already was, from the beginning on, he was preparing, he was accepting the Yonah. Zogen bus l'chaim, zogen anigen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ay, la 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 la, ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, la 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 la, ay, 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 la 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 la, la 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 la, la la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, la la, ya la 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 la. La schon schläft. Aber es lebt dicker. L'chaim. Sag l'chaim noch alle Poches. Huh? When you take out the sichos that the Rebbe started speaking right after Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud, the first Rebbe Yoel and the other were afraid to send in a Hanocha to the Rebbe. They didn't know if the Rebbe would accept it because officially noch nicht geheißen. So a few of us sat down with Rebbe Yoel, and we told him put together that was a sikha from Rish Chodesh Iyar. Yeah. That Farbrengen the Rebbe spoke, Sachen, you know, that a Chassid were not accustomed to hear. At any rate, so 2 days later, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, he comes to 770, he comes into the office, and he says, take the Hanocha and take it into the Rebbe. So I said, you know what, we'll go both together. So I already was a shtickle ben bias over there. I was waiting for the Rebbe. So knocked on the door. It was about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and the Rebbe opens the door and he gives a look. What are two young Leute doing up so late? Was then to ruf as a spät. So I tell the Rebbe that as we just finished the Hanoche from the Farbrengen from the Chodesh Iyar, and we'd like that the Rebbe should be at Mazkir. The Rebbe takes the Hanoche. I think it was in that sikha when the Rebbe said that he's not happy with the nusach that you write on opinion. It used to be the nusach on the Lord Rachamim, Mimokar Harachamim, Al Pi Tshuva, so and so. So by that Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, why do we have to give the Rebbe an address? In my opinion, it's enough just to write on the Lord Rachamim, not even Rachamim Rabbim, nothing. All we are asking, and the Rebbe's will know from where he has to bring it down. When the Rebbe takes the Hanocha, and he sees on one page where that is written, and he gives a big smile, and he says, you put this into the Hanocha also? So Yoel said, of course. Mit mir noch herauswerfen from the Lubavitch. They'll throw me out of the Lubavitch and I'm trying to make changes. Okay. Then the Rebbe saw that we wrote Sichas Kvei Kedushos Ad Moshlite. And from the Chodesh Iyar, the Rebbe took the Sikha, he took a pencil, and the word Admor he circled around, and he says, this you cannot put in. Kvei Kedushas, he allowed to leave there. That was Mamash Chodesh Iyar, a month, 2 months after. The word Admor, I don't want to say what he said then, the reason for that. And then before we left, the Rebbe said, and where are the Hanochas from the previous Farbrengen? The Rebbe wanted Hanochas from before Rosh Chodesh, because the Rebbe Farbrengen Shabbos, Mevorachim, other, and so weiter, all the Farbrengen. So they all sat down with the Chevra, and they put together all, and that's how the union from the Hanochas started. The Gabba, what am I saying this? When we learned the Sichis from after Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud to Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph, the Elter Chassidim didn't believe what they saw. The Rebbe spoke, and kept allowed it to be in writing. Was is the inyan von a Rebbe? What is the meaning of his kashrus to a Rebbe? And what does one do to be Mekusha to the Rebbe? When the Rebbe said by a Farbrengen, that, wir sagen auf Loshan Yiddish, bei mir kommt euch, als a Rebbe is Atzmus und Mohus ongeton in a Guf Gashmi. Atzmus Mohus is speaking the very essence of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is above and beyond all limitations, all understandings. We have no hasogya, but we have to say something, describe what it is. So even when we say on the Eibishter, Atzmus and Mohus, that's not what the Eibishter is, because Atzmus is a limited concept, Mohus is a limited concept, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above all forms of limitations, whatever you can speak about. But being that Rabbi Rashab writes on a Maimon, we have to say something. So we say, but when we say Atzmus Mohus, we're speaking about the Eibishter the way he's above anything you could describe. Sagt der Rebbe in der Siche, bei mir kommt euch, als Atzmus und Mohus ist ongetan in der Guf von dem Rebbe. He's caught in the physical body. And then the Rebbe gave a smile. Die, was willen das nicht annehmen, soll nicht annehmen. Those who don't want to accept what I'm saying, that in the physical body of the Rebbe, it was Atzmus und Mohus, is nothing nicht. But by mir kommt euch, my feeling is, as a Rebbe is Atzmus und Mohus. When Chassidim heard that expression, it was not, huh? He said on the Friedrich Rebbe. I said after Shinjon, when the elder Chassidim heard that, Bechlau, the Friedrich Rebbeim never discussed what a Rebbe is. Very, very, very little. They never gave out expressions. But when you take the sichos of the Rebbe and you hear what the Rebbe revealed to us, what is the inyan from the Rebbe? So when the elder Chassidim heard that, they didn't know. So somebody in the light, the Bochum went over the elder Bochum. So they said, listen, is a Rebbe, is unser Rebbe, and you have to accept whatever he says. You do understand, you don't understand, but this is what our Rebbe is saying now. Every Rebbe expresses the things, what he sees, what he understands, what he feels, and that's it. The Rebbe should express us that I'm a cooked of a Rebbe, you're actually looking at Atzmus and Mohus. It's not the Rebbe. The physical body is not the Rebbe. Reb Shmuel told us on Meiser, Reb Shmuel of Witten, that the famous Ramotl Chernobyler was once Farbrengen, and he spoke about the greatness of the Lamed Vov Tzadikim Nestorim. The Gemara says that in every generation there are 36 hidden Tzadikim. And he spoke about the greatness of them and the koyach that they have to conceal themselves, that people should not even have any hint. I'll give you one example. What the Chassidim told us came down from the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim. Before the Alter Rebbe gave permission to print the Tanya, so we know he sent it to Rebbe Reb Zusha and Rebbe Kohen. Well, one day, he took the Tanya, wrapped it up in paper, and he called in one of his Chassidim. And he said, I want you to go to this and this city. When you come to that city, go to the theater and sit down in the theater. Wait till everybody leaves. Then the caretaker is going to come over to you and he said, what are you doing here? Tell him that I sent you and I want him to look something over. So the Chosid, he came to the theater, he said he had to sit with Famachta Egem, and he waited till everybody left, and the caretaker was going around to collect care. He comes over and he tells him, you have to leave. He says, I'm coming from the Rebbe. Who's your Rebbe? Oh, Jamke. Zalman calls Jamke. He said, what does he want? He said he wants you to look over some of his writings. So the Chosid says that this caretaker takes the Tanya, and he goes through. Zogam as sehr gut in a Moses drucken. Tell him that it's very good, and he has to print it. At Tzaddik Nisla, he's in the theater. So the Motel Chernobyl was masbid the greatness of Tzaddik Nisla. So after he spoke, so some of the Elter Chassidim went over to him, as that's Elter Shmuel the Meiser, that the Kabbalah from the Chernobyl Chassidim, that they said that they're sure that among the Chassidim that come to the Motel Chernobyl in Islam, there are a few tzaddikim in the story. Although he's a tzaddik nisla, but we like to give a look at one of them. And what does the Motel Chernobyl answer them? You are looking at a tzaddik nisla. So they say, Rebbe, you're not a tzaddik nisla. You're a famous tzaddik in every area. And Reb Shmuel said, why am I telling you this, Meiser? I want you to listen carefully and remember carefully what the Motel Chernobyl answered them. Als was ihr seht und uns, ist das nicht uns. Es geht aneinander in der Gamri. Everything that you see, we are something entirely different, and he says this is something that you cannot understand and cannot have any instinct what that is. Dr. Shmuel, what was our Motel Chernobyl telling us? We have no idea what is our Rebbe. We think that the Rebbe is a great Talmud Chochem and a great Tzaddik and he's a Baal Mephis and a Her and a Hin. Says our Motel Chernobyl that that's not us. That's something which extends from us what's not us. The Rebbe, in his Sichos, after Tov Shin Yud, if you read him closely, he was megaleh to us and revealed how much we could describe. Any person could understand what a Rebbe is. So l'mayla we call us slogan ganzen. And that's why the Rebbe says that a Rebbe could do anything and everything. Since a Rebbe can and the Rebbe writes, it says in those Sichos, that the Rebbe has the koyach to be mekasher every yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's your prat to be mekasher? Every yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The nefesh Hashem is being Yisrael is chelik al kam mamash. Every yid has this chelik, what we call as much as you could call chelik, a part. What's a part of a likus? A part is something which has physical limitations, and the likus also have limitations. How did Alter Rebbe write? As a nefesh Hashem is being Yisrael, he chelik al lekatz, like a posik in Talach. But what's not chelik? So Chassidus goes on what chelik kosh hatefus b'miktzos at the tefus b'kulei, that a chelik reveals to us, like how do we say about Hashem? Vayidaber Hashem, Vayishma Hashem, Vayemer Hashem. It's not shaykhis, no. But then we understand that Vayidaber means to reveal this what you have within yourself, and you want to express it, and you want to share it with others. It comes out through dibur. That's what the Rebbe says in Pedro Kofalo from Tanya. Dibur is an iyam from Megala, what's in V'pnim. The mainly say, so B'shas we speak about chelik, just like we say a chelik, every chelik has an ikishatayvus mamitzos at the tayvus b'kulei. Every part of the thing has complete everything. And as the Rebbe said today, in science they saw you take a drop of blood, it has everything that you want to know about the blood. You don't have to have big measures of blood. Ein Tropfen. One drop. Why? Because that drop is chelik of the animal, so that possesses everything. The Rebbe was saying that the Rebbe has this koyach, b'mekasher, that although the neshama is mekusher, but b'shas it says in the Dam, we say in the Birchus HaShachar, the neshama is understood to be teherohi. Teheri that she's an Eilam Mantzilus. Then out of Varosa, she comes on Eilam Abri, out of Yitzir, out on the Fakta being, the Atam Ishamor Bekirbi, it comes down into this physical world. Says Alter Rebbe and Tanya, as a result of the Neshama coming down in this world, it becomes the Likus, the Kedusha, the godliness that the Neshama has, it could be concealed. It's not open. And that's why it's possible that even though every Yid, regardless of what he does, whatever his conduct is, as far he could go, as far low, but he still remains connected to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Why? Because he has that Chel Kelika, but it's not functioning in a sense, it's not doing the job to help the Yid do what it has to be. What does a Rebbe do? A Rebbe is like the Rebbe, our Rebbe says, a Rebbe is trying to reveal that etzim, that very essence, what a neshama really is, that should be able to reveal itself in the physical body, and that the physical body should be controlled by this etzim haneshama. And who has that koyach to reveal in every yid that etzim haneshama is a Rebbe. Gefragt by Rabbi Jacobson or Rabbi Sholem, you mean to say that a Rebbe can affect millions and millions of people? He says, what kind of question? Of course. When you have the sun shining, doesn't it shine all over the world? Don't you have the rays? The sun ray, it gives out rays to shine the whole world. And yours truly was once speaking to a group of Balabatim when I mentioned this vote. So one of the Balabatim said, Rabbi, are you telling me that every Yid is connected to the Rebbe? How could that be? So I say, let me ask you a question. When it comes the time when you have to change the clock, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, how many clocks, how many watches, how many computers are changed in the very same second, split second? 10, 20, or millions? You have a physical object which has the koyach to affect millions upon millions of other objects. If this is so in the physical sense, so was war the effect Ashayli in the Ruchnius? And you said, you gave me a whole different appreciation of how to look at the Rebbe. If I could see it in the Gashmistic world, that a simple Gashmistic physical aspect with its limitations is able to affect millions and millions of other objects, how much more so is it in him? So one of the things what was never spoken about by the Frierdiker Rebbeim, first of all, there are very few, we don't have many sichos from the Frierdiker Rebbeim, and even the sichos from the Rebbe Rashab, which already have more, you don't see that he should discuss this concept of Rebbe in such oises that we hear from the Rebbe. And therefore, what the Rebbe was regarding to us, a very novel, strong point that the Rebbe was Megala, and we closer a little bit, saw it constantly. The Rebbe feels connected to each and every Yid, especially to Chassidim, regardless of the status where they are. That Yid is the Rebbe connecting with him, and the Rebbe is constantly thinking about him. There was one afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was standing in the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe asks me, when was the last time that you saw this and this Shingaman in 770? So I say, it's a number of months. Do you know the reason for it? I say, no. And this was 5 o'clock. 5:20, I'm sitting in the office, and who walks into the office? This Chaverman. Shalom Aleichem, was machst du? How are you? We're speaking. Then I asked him, where were you all these times? He said, I said, what brought you to come now? It comes to my mind, why weren't you in 70s for such a long time? I say, maybe you know, the Rebbe is standing in his office, and what is troubling the Rebbe? That a younger man wasn't in 770 for so long, and as a result of the Rebbe speaking, I'm finding a younger man. The Rebbe is thinking about this younger man, why he's not in 770. The Rebbe is thinking about each and every one of us. By every younger man was there, Chosh and tired. and whatever he could do to help that person in a direct way, the Rebbe was ready to do it. We have no understanding. I could give you many more examples where the Rebbe would start speaking about people which we would never think that make an issue of him. But by Rebbe is jeder Yid, jeder Chosid, regardless of what Ubegalu to us. That being that he is the sword, the Rebbe says in Perek Beis and Tanya, that the highest, the life of a Yid has to go through his head. The head, the brain, is the source of life for the entire body. And when somebody has a stroke, what is a stroke? It affected a cell which does not allow to have the circulation of blood coming to that cell. Memela, that cell cannot send life to a certain part of the body, and that's why that part of the body becomes non-functional. A morgan stroke affects the hand, the foot, the hand, the hand. Why is that? Because the stroke affected a cell in the brain, which that cell is connected to this part, and because the cell is not able to get the flow of blood, was hadam hu nefesh, the mela that happens. The Rosh is the center of life of the body. The Rebbe is a Rosh Tevis, Rosh B'nai Yisrael, and as it says by Rosh Hashanah, it's not called Rosh Hashanah because it's the first day of the year, because on the day of Rosh Hashanah that Nimshach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu downloads into the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the Tuesdays of Rosh Hashanah, every chayis, everything that has to take place in the rest of the 365, 380, whatever these days are going to coming. That's why it's called the Rosh Hashanah. Because the day of Rosh Hashanah, that's why the Rabbeim, especially the Rebbe Rashab, has requested time and time and again, you should know that every second of the 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah is negated to the coming days. You're going to utilize it in a proper way, it will bring to you what you have to have. In Chas v'Sholem, you allow those minutes and those seconds go to waste, it's going to affect you later. Because Rosh Hashanah is the highest of the ganz year. The Rebbe, Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the Rebbe gives highest to each and every one. And I remember Reb Shmuel one time was sitting with the Bochum of Farbrengen, and he was Mazbenis, and he said, "Ich habe sagen, a Sach, was gehört von älteren Seiten. Say, Meida ani lefonecha, melech chai v'kayim, shehechazata bin ishmosi, you return to me, my neshama, sagt Reb Shmuel, hom ältere Chsidim gesagt, shehechazarta, how did the neshama come back to every Yid durch dem Rebbe? Because he's the head, he's the Rosh. Every neshama, in order it should come back to its physical body, goes through the Rosh, goes through the Rebbe. That is the connection that we have with the Rebbe. And that's why the Rebbe was so much concerned that our connection, because the Rebbe says in the Geras HaKadosh Lamed Aleph, you have the circulation of the body of the blood. And the Rebbe goes on to describe, if there's one part of the body where there's an obstruction, it's not only that it has an effect on that part where the obstruction is, that obstruction affects the entire body because the blood is not be able to go through, where it has to go through all the veins and come to each part of the body. So individual obstructions of Rebbe is not only for that part, it's for the ganze Guf. The Zloba says, Rebbe, the Inyan von Ayid, the obstruction Chas v'Sholem that Ayid has, and whatever it may cause his connection to the Rebbe, it's not only for him, the Rebbe has to affect everybody. The Nekuda, what is the B'Shas, Rebbe becomes Rebbe, and as the Rebbe said, every year, the Rebbe's Oilet, that's one of the Chedushim from the Rebbe, which maybe we'll discuss it, which the Rebbe Megalig has, and we're accustomed that the Neshama has Aliyah on the day of the Yortzeit. Well, come to the Rebbe said on the day, B'Shas he comes a Rebbe, every year on that day, higher level, and the Rebbe is mamshich to every yid more on a higher level. May the nekuda, what this is, what we're trying to say, that we learn to see Rebbe. Meilas Levim is it's jetzt Farbrengen von Asir. Rebbe should be in a condition to prepared that he should be able to take us away. There, a locomotive wants to. Happens in the Rebbe, the locomotive has a very heavy load. You can. Not that Rebbe remains standing, it moves ahead, so the Rebbe don't that sicher. The Rebbe lo yochel la. Hayed Chassid Shvat. Ya 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 la 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 la.
Rachim und Rabim.
Ja, nur ohne Rachim, nicht mehr Rabim. Wir dürfen nicht sagen, welcher Rabim. L'chaim, Chavre, wo schläft jetzt hier Yud Shvat?
Chaim.
If love high yoime, come in Yosef Yisrael B'Shukim. If it wasn't for Matan Torah, how many Yosefs are walking around in the street? Of course, they wouldn't have any Torah. We could safely say, in love high yoime, von Asir B'Shvat, that the Rebbe accepted to become the Rebbe, what would be with us? We have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu and show the Rebbe thanks. Show the Rebbe the simcha that we were zeicher, that the Rebbe was Mazkir, and the Rebbe accepted, and the Rebbe became the Rebbe of our generation, and that gives us our ganze chayas. There was a shliach in America who had a Beis Chabad, and from time to time, more people were Baruch Geshem visiting, and the Beis Chabad became a little bit, tight, like over here, Baruch Hashem. So he went and he called a contractor, and they decided how to expand the Beis Chabad. He didn't think of going to the city to get the permission that you have to do to make changes and here and here, and the guy he made what he needed to do. A few months later, two gentlemen walk into the Beis Chabad. They present themselves as inspectors of the building department of the city. And being that we heard that you made renovations over here, you did this and that, we want to come and see if everything is according to law. After spending a number of hours, they came back and told him, this you did against the law, this you did against the law, and we may have to do kach v'kach has v'sholem. We give you 3 months to prepare yourself for it. He went and he wrote a letter to the Rebbe. And he asked the Rebbe what to do. And what does the Rebbe answer him? Zos onheben lernen Tanya be'iyun. You start learning Tanya diligently, more b'kavonim, more deeply. What does that have to do with the building? Based on this. You don't ask any questions. And the Rebbe Haystood, he came the day that he had to appear in court. So he took a Tanya with him, because he figured it'll take time till he's being called to the desk of the judge, and I say, he sat down in the corner, and he started learning Tanya, and he tried in every way to dismiss himself what was going on around him. A short while later, a woman approaches him, and she asks him, what book are you studying so diligently? So what is that book about? And he said, this is a Hebrew book of Jewish philosophy, trying to explain what the ability of a soul is, that it has intellectual powers and emotional powers, what is the connection between these powers, how does one affect the other hand, and it gives a ganze explanation what the Rebbe speaks about, and so weiter. And she starts asking him questions. She tells him, I'm studying this subject now. And after a while, she asks him, is this book translated in English? He said, yes. What's the name of the book? He said, the name of the book is Tanya. Tanya. He said, if that's the case, I want to have a special interest. And she asked him where she could obtain it, and they went on to discuss it. Finally, they call out that so-and-so is summoned to the desk of the judge. So he was sat down in the defendant's chair, and then they call out, where's the prosecutor? And who shows up at the prosecutor? This lady. So the judge turns to her and said, what are the accusations against this person? And she doesn't answer. He waits a while, and he asks a second time. Doesn't answer again. A third time. So he turns to the shaliach. If there are no accusations against you, I want to give you a blessing that you should continue doing your good work, what you're doing to help many Jewish people. And I get them again, when they left the courthouse, so the shaliach asks, I didn't know that you represent the city. But if you have a job to represent the city, and you had all these accusations, all these complaints, why don't you pick it up? And she says, how can I try to put a blame on such a wonderful gentleman, such an individual that has such deep ideas, what a person is, what a life is, and his lesson. I couldn't bring myself to kill any claims to you. Yesotov Hashlanen, when the Rebbe told him, as Allah and Tanya be'iyun, and that took care of everything. Now, folgen was man sagt, man versteht jetzt, man versteht nicht, and here is this. So, he says, I'll tell you, I am the only Jew in this town. I'm past 90 years old. The Galach, the priest, called me a few weeks ago. He said, listen, a person doesn't know when the time comes. If you're going to be all alone, you'll lay over there, nobody will take an interest in you, and what's going to happen to you? If you become one of us, if anything happens, we will take the proper care of you, and I say, weiter. He tells the young man, I came home, and I could tell, maybe he's right. And here I'm thinking, suddenly you come with matzah. When I was a young child, and I was learning in a yeshiva, I was told that the Zohar says, as matzah is michla de mehemanusa. Matzah strengthens the emunah of the Yid. The Lubavitch Rebbe is sitting in his town of Brooklyn. He sees that there's a Yid all the way up north Russia, and Chas v'Sholem may want to do so and so, and in order to save that Yid, what does he do? He sends me michla de mehemanusa. He sends me this food that strengthens my emunah. And he tells the young man, tell the Lubavitch Rebbe, I promise him, it will never happen. Whatever happens to happen to me, it's going to happen as a Yid. Ich bin ein Yid und ich will bleiben ein Yid. I am a Yid und ich will weiter bleiben ein Yid. So the Rebbe has nothing to worry about. Und I say weiter. What happened over here? The Rebbe is sitting in Crown Heights. When they get to cook, because, as we said before, that every Yid is connected to the Rebbe. No, today we can understand these things. Today, in order for them, they made this fence as a throw between Lebanon and Israel, between Syria. So you have this fence, but on the fence they put an electric wire. What is an electric wire? And somebody tries to penetrate, so a light comes up in the headquarters that in this place somebody is trying to penetrate into Israel. So in the Gashmistic sense, we know that there are connections, and when somebody tries to interfere with that connection, a light comes up. Being that the Rebbe is connected to every Yid, the Rebbe suddenly saw a light coming up from this part of Russia, and he sees what's going on over there. And the Rebbe has to take care of every Yid. Again, we see that this, what we mentioned before, when the Rebbe said that every Yid is connected to Kodesh Baruch Hu, By the Rebbe, we were able to see it day in and day out, how much the Rebbe was thinking and trying to help other Yidden in different ways, how they should be able to be helped and whatever it had to be. I don't remember if I told you this Meiser, especially according to the Mal Shem Tov, from everything that a person sees and hears. So being that he heard it at that time is a simon that this Meiser has a message for him in his situation that he is now. It was one time, right in the beginning, Tavshin Aleph, I was sitting with Mitzvah Shabbos in the office. The phone rings, and I pick up the phone, and the Lubavitch Imam from another country asked me, do me a favor, go into the Rebbe immediately and ask a bracha for my wife. I asked him, what's the problem? He said that yesterday before Lichtzin, she fainted. We summoned the doctors, the nurses, the ambulance, and they couldn't revive her. They took her to the hospital. It took a few hours till they were able to revive her. I just came back from the hospital, Mitzvah Shabbos, and the doctors tell me that her condition is still very critical. Get a bracha for me. I took the name. I gave over the name to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, Zog him zwei Sachen. Tell him two things. Number one, tell him, I will mention her to him. And then the Rebbe says, tell us as follows. Friday night, between 5 and 5:30 in the morning, her condition was so critical that the doctors gave up on her. You think that what settled the situation, what calmed it down, is the treatment of the doctors? And the Rebbe said, nay, no, I thought about her. And as a result of that, her condition settled a little. Why am I telling him, the Rebbe says, add on to him, why am I telling him that I'm sitting here in Crown Heights Friday night in the middle of the night, and I see what's happening in another country? Weil ich will, I'll say the Lashon from the Rebbe, ich will, soll wissen, as von mir kann man sich nicht behalten. I want them to know, you cannot hide from me. Wherever you're going to be, I see everything that's happening with each individual person. I call up this gentleman, and I tell him, I said, what is the Rebbe saying? He says, 5:15 in the morning, the phone rang. I woke up one of my young grandchildren. He picked up the receiver, and the doctor tells me that you have a half hour to say goodbye to your wife. This thing turned suddenly to the other side, and we don't know how long it's going to last. If you want to come, try to get here within the half hour. He says, I woke up the whole family. I lived 25 minutes away walking from the hospital. By the time we came to the hospital, the nurses tell us, it calmed down, take it easy, it settled down a little bit. What is the Rebbe saying over here? What is the Rebbe revealing to us? We should know, Zok the Rebbe, that wherever you are, the Rebbe sees you. And I just learned a mimer from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe explains what that means. He says that being that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is b'chol mokum u'mokum, is a chelik to say he's part of this, he's so connected to Shechinte, that there's no place in the world where the Shechina is not, automatically, because of that connection that the Rebbe has with the Eibishter, so wherever the Eibishter is, the Rebbe is. And the reason for that, because he's connected with Hashem, and Hashem is all over. The Rebbe is there also. And here the Rebbe is revealing to us practically in a person to Meiser. So wissen sein, als von mir kann man sich nicht behalten. We have to. It doesn't take away freedom of choice. He tries to help. He helps. He gives ideas. He gives koiches. But the Peil Mamish, in the actuality, the person has to do it himself. And these are one in the Nekudas that we see from the Rebbe, what the Rebbe is. He had to go through a very serious heart operation. And although he says, but we realize. So I wanted to have a bracha from the Rebbe before I make this heart. I gave the Rebbe a zettel, a note, and I write that two specialists says kach and kach. The Rebbe calls me over, and he puts his ear to my heart, and he walks away. Ich sehe nicht kein Tam für was du das dann nicht durch. I don't see any reason why you need an operation. So I tell the Rebbe, but these two heart specialists say that they're making a mistake and you don't need an operation. Let them make all the examinations again. The asked what the Rebbe's up there. So I said, what are you going to do? Of course I know what the Rebbe does. And says, please call me back. So when I told the Rebbe what happened, he calls me back a few days later. He went to one of these specialists and said, do me a favor. He didn't tell him what the Rebbe said. Maybe you want to check. He made the new examination. He said, yeah, we don't see any reason for it. He went to the second doctor. That Shmuel vertal mal sagen, when you came to the Rebbe Rashav and you asked him about our operation, and if he didn't want to make the operation, the Rebbe Rashav would go like this. You don't need an operation. So Elton Chassidim wanted to know what did he have to do. So Reb Shmuel said, the emes is that there wasn't need an operation. But with this, what the Rebbe Rashav went like this, he removed all the options, all the reasons for it, at Avek Ogevisht. He washed away all the reasons, but an operation, what we call a wireless type of operation. The Rebbe wanted, and the same thing happened by the second doctor, that you don't have to have an operation. I'm going on a different level. How much in the beginning of the Nesiyas, what level of emunah did the Rebbe want we should have? The Gevena Choshev, I'm not going to mention his name, very Choshev, a big Askin in Lubavitch, and he told us the story. This was a few months after Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph. He said he had a problem with his knee. And the doctors told him, the local doctors, you have to have an operation. So he went to 2 different surgeons to discuss it. Each one had a different approach how to make it. So he decided to come to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe which of the 2 doctors should he engage to make the operation. And after he presents to the Rebbe the 2 opinions, and the Rebbe looks at him, and the Rebbe says, why don't you? So I tell the Rebbe, ich will a broche, I shouldn't have an operation. And the Rebbe tells me, now it's too late. So I asked, why is it too late? And this is what the Rebbe told me. He says, when you opened the door to my room, you were standing on the threshold. And that moment, you had emunah pshuta, that this room could save you from an operation, that emunah would have removed the operation. Now that you're asking for the bracha, it's not because emunah. You heard from me that I said that I can remove the operation, so it's not emunah, it's not belief, it's very seichel, when seichel can't accomplish. What did the Rebbe think it was? By the Farbrengen, the Rebbe opened up a new, a new group, a new activity. And he appointed 3 chassidim sitting by this Farbrengen, that they should be the ones to actually make about it the union of this new thing, the idea what the Rebbe had. The morning, I called one of them, and the Rebbe comes and asks me, is there any news about it? What should I tell him? They tell me, don't say anything. I mean, don't say anything. I'm going to be like a glump. Yeah, be like a glump. What's this? Why do you say that? Because last night we sat for a number of hours, and we started thinking, how can we start working to act to start? So therefore, we don't know what to tell you. Good. The Rebbe comes, and the first question he asks, was hast du gehört von der neue committee? What did you hear about the new committee? Stehe ich wie a Glomp? And I didn't answer. The Rebbe says, what kind of secretary are you? A secretary has to prepare what the one that he works for, what his schedule is going to be, and the things that by Chassidim, you don't try to correct yourself. You don't try to offend yourself. But being that the Rebbe asked, I called them this morning, and I asked them what to say, and they told me, don't say anything. I asked them why, and they told me because wherever they're going to start, there's going to be a problem, and I say, weiter. So the Rebbe says, we moved. That's what the Rebbe said. So I told the Rebbe I'm going to call them and tell them that they should start working. So the Rebbe, now it's too late. I asked the Rebbe, why is it too late? He said, last night, when they saw all the difficulties, but they would have started because I asked them to do it, that emunah that they would have had on Afo became, and still I asked them to do it, that emunah would have removed all the obstacles. Now that you're going to tell them it's not mitzad emunah, you heard from me, and then you're going to tell them that I said that if they're going to do it, so it's not emunah anymore, it's seichel, and seichel cannot accomplish it. The Medrash says, the oil, as they started walking, suddenly they saw a mountain going to the sky. So the Medrash. So Yitzchak asked his father, how can we scale such a tall mountain? And Avraham Avinu says, we have to go. And the Medrash says, as they approached, the mountain disappeared. They went further. So the Medrash, they saw a very deep pool. And they didn't say how to get there. So again, Yitzchak Avinu says, Avraham Avinu sagt, ich weiß nicht. Gegangen, what does the Medrash tell us, Dr. Rebbe? Davon emunah. They meaning as they think that I didn't realize that there are difficulties. But this is what the Lashman the Rebbe said of Yiddish. We'll say it over. They meaning as ich nicht gewusst, was es sein Schwierigkeit. Gebeten sollen anheben, wenn sie wollten angeheben, wollte der Emunah mit Wattel gehen, alle Minister kommen. They don't believe that I understood, just like they saw the difficulties. I didn't see the difficulties. But being that I was hoping that they will have that belief, that if I ask them to do it, they'll start doing it, but now it's not belief anymore. Now it's going to be Seichel, Seichel kann es nicht tun. What are these two stories, or many of money similar? What did the Rebbe want right at the beginning of his Nesias? Wir soll hoffen, Emunah pshuta, as nicht kein Sach, what the Rebbe kann nicht tun. There is nothing what the Rebbe cannot do. The Rebbe is the Balabus of the Welt, and the Rebbe can accomplish, and you can go on stories. I can tell you stories that went through my desk, as we call it in English, things that people would never believe that this could happen. And your man called me up that he had to expand his base Chabad, and he needed up his $500,000. And one day, a young man comes into him, not 100% in besorgt. He says, I have to do something positive, and I want to help you here. What can I do for you? He tells him, he says, you know what? I'm going to give you $250,000, and you try to make the other call you. But on one condition, that the building should be called on my wife's name. A few days passes, the Shaliach calls him, he said, we're starting the building, what is your name? He gives his name. What is your wife's name? He gives an English name. What is her Hebrew name? She has no Hebrew name. Oh, could we give her one? No, she's not Jewish. She's not Jewish? I cannot put a name on a Chabad house for a not Jewish woman. Is she ready to convert? No. I'm sorry. You mean to say you're ready to give up the $250,000? I'm not giving up. I'm just doing what is proper and the way it should be done in the proper way. Shame. A few days later, he came to the Ohel and he told the Rebbe the Meise. And the Bet and Berem, the Rebbe should help him. He walks out of the Ohel and he's sitting in the tent. And two gentlemen come over to him. They say, we see you're very worried. What's your problem? Where are you from? I'm from this and this city. Oh, we're from that city also. What's your problem? And he tells them that he was planning, he wanted to expand the Beis Chabad, and they had this Meiser. Don't worry. We will give you $2 million, and you'll be able to expand. They gave him money on the folk. As time went on, they gave him. At the end, they gave him $3 million. Was er gewendel? Kommt ein Mann zum Rebbe, and he tells the Rebbe he has to expand his Beis Chabad. Here he was hoping to get from this person, but he was standing strong. Am betonisch mavata sein. You can't give up what Yiddishkeit is. I cannot call a building of Chabad or the Yiddish building on a non-Jewish name. And he gebet him Rebbe Baruch. That same day, two gentlemen approached him, and he got the $3 million. Ein Baruch Hashem, you could come and see a most beautiful building. One of the shluchim tells us that he had a storefront. One day, for Shaks, he had only 9 people. He stands out in the street, and he has to have a tent. He sees a middle-aged Yid is walking by. He goes over to him, he says, do us a favor. We need 15 minutes of your time. What is that? We need to make $1 million. Oh, I don't have any time. Gave me gesundheit. Shame. That guy left. They found somebody. This thing happened 3 times. On the 3rd day, this gentleman says, I'll come to the Chabad house, but on one condition. Don't ask me to put on film. I don't want to put on a film. Okay, but you'll sit for the $1 million. That's what I'll do. Sure. So every morning, the Shaliach told us the Meiser. We know who he is. The Yid came and he sat for the $1 million. After davening, I used to go over to people who didn't put on film. A week later, I went over because I didn't want to put him in a position, and I gave to the next person. Heet on schreien. Und ich bin nicht kein Yid. I'm not a Jew. And I asked him very calmly, you want to put on film? Of course I want to put on film. So he started putting on film, and this went on for a few weeks. One day, after everybody leaves, this gentleman comes over to the Shaliach. I don't understand. The Lubavitch Rebbe's institution should be in the storefront. It has to have a beautiful building. Why don't you make a beautiful building? You know what this means? He says, what do you know? He says, you know what? 2 blocks away from here, there's a parcel of land that's up for sale. And if we get that parcel of land, we can be able to make a much beautiful building. Let me see it. He takes him there, and the Shaliach tells this Yid they won $1 million, $2 million for this parcel of land. Okay. The next morning, the Tzelt Shaliach, before this gentleman leaves, he hands him an envelope and he walks out of the storefront. He opens up the envelope, saying, lichtig in the Eigen, a check for $1 million, a down payment for this parcel of land. He calls up the bank, and he wants to know. The bank said if he'll put in 20 times over that, it'll also go through. Don't worry. It's a valid check. He called up 3 Balabatim, and he told them, you give me 300 and 300, do 300. Within 2 days, he had his $2 million to buy this parcel of land, and they started making the plans to build the building. And then he received from New York, he was told that make sure that the building is called on the name of this Yid who gave you the down payment for $1 million. 2 months later, this Yid passed away. Now what happened over here? And your man remembered that the Rebbe said, every opportunity you have to help a Yid, whatever it's going to be, do it. He only asked this young man, this Yid, to come in to sit for $1 million. Hat ihm nicht gebeten wegen Tfilm, hat nicht gebeten, kein Sach nicht, only sit $1 million. As a result of that, before this Yid hat Eule gewinnt Meile, hat Maschuk gewinnt $1 million, he started putting on Tfilm, he gave money for deposit for Beis Chabad, and Heint is a beautiful Beis Chabad in that area. The Rebbe said, don't let any opportunity, whatever it may not be, how to you may appear very unimportant. You never know what's going to go out. The Rebbe said, you take a seed, as a klein chicken meisele, it looks like nothing. You plant it in, the Rebbe gets up. When we make this around there, it comes out a tree with peters and peters. When we see that the light had a moon upshoot in the Rebbe's Werte, they came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe came. He could go on and tell you mices upon mices, mamish that took place by fremde people. And Woche tells us he was 2 years ago, from the Friedrichen Rebbe. He went to Manhattan for Mifzah Chanukah. He approaches a young woman, and he wants to give her a Chanukah. She says, I'm just as Haredi as you are, but I want to tell you a mice with the Lubavitch Rebbe that you people don't know. I live in one of these tall apartment houses. My next door neighbor is a Jewish couple, and unfortunately for a number of years they had no children. One day we were sitting and discussing, so I told this young lady, you know that there's a great rabbi living in Brooklyn, and people say that when you get a blessing from him, the blessing takes place. I would advise you to go next Sunday with your husband and ask this rabbi for a blessing. She comes back, this lady tells the bochur, and she says, we went over to the Rebbe, and I told the Rebbe I would like to have a blessing for a child. And the rabbi says, if you're asking a blessing, why singular, why not plural? Why are you asking a blessing for a child? Ask a blessing for children. So my husband repeats, we want a blessing for children. The Rebbe gives my husband $3, and he gives me $3. Tells this lady to the Lubavitch Bocha, was meinst du? The next year she had triplets. Mit $1, meint $1 is $1. $1, that's a tziniut for a brocha. And though you could go on and tell mices in every aspect, it's in those business, it's those gezuns, it's those politics, whatever it is, those people who listen to the Rebbe, whether they understood why he's saying it, why he's not saying it, on the surface it appeared was for this mithelfa and hin, when they listened and did exactly what the Rebbe said, is Hatzlacha gaven l'mayla ma'mishua. B'shas kommt an Sira Yud, and the Rebbe writes, and Medazim Chachazek sein in his kashrus, one of these kashrus is to listen and follow what the Rebbe says. Heint, what the Rebbe gesagt, you get to the feet and Rebbe, you open up a sikh and you get heroes. There are ways to get heroes from the Rebbe today. People have different ways. People go to the oil and they get answers. Many people go to the oil and they get answers. And unbelievable. There was one couple, a boch and a maidel, that were very close to the Rebbe. And unfortunately, they were speaking about marriage and Ishkahofen. Nothing happened. Then finally, after Gimel Tammuz, they met again. Baruch Hashem, 2 years passes, and there's no news. So they came to the office. What should we do? So one of us said, tomorrow morning we'll go with you to the Rebbe. We came to the Rebbe, and we told the Rebbe, these are people that the Rebbe knows that they helped in the office. And as a result of that, they were married. Und darf man sehen, als haben Kinder. Wir meilen beten am Rebbe, and the Rebbe soll benchen. A year later, she had a child. 2 years later, another child. And a few years later, weiter a child. We darf wissen that when you come to the Oyhel, the Rebbe sees everything, and the Rebbe hears everything. And I'll tell you one of many mices. And this we heard from the individual himself. A bocher was once at the Oyhel. And on the way back, he asked for what we call a tramp to take a ride back to 770. As the car moved out of the Beis HaChaim, he fell asleep. The driver says suddenly he wakes up and he starts screaming, "Oy vey." So the driver asks him, "What schreist du?" So you're not going to believe me. The Rebbe comes to me And the Rebbe said, wie kommt es, als ein Bocher, was lernt in Saal, so kommen zu mir ohne alles Gotten. 20-year-old Bocher. The Rebbe asked, how is it that a Bocher that's learning in the 770 should come to me without alles Gotten? The drive picked up his shades and no alles Gotten. I forgot it in the mikveh, if you want to say that. What happened over here? A Bocher comes to the hill, and the Rebbe sees that he's not only the Neshama, he sees everything in the Gashmi, and he comes to him, and he comes to him, goes to feet, and the Rebbe said, that B'shas the Rebbe reveals to you, the Rebbe said, you have to appreciate what's happening. This was Pesach Tov Shin Tes Vov, Achon Shel Pesach. The Rebbe by Farbrengen said, I received a letter from one of the gentlemen sitting here by the table and asking me a question. A few weeks before Pesach, he had a dream that the Rebbe the Shver, my father-in-law, came to him and told him that he has to do a certain project. So he's asking me whether he has to believe it, and that's a project. What the Gemara is Shavya Baberu. It's not. And the Rebbe became very serious, and the Rebbe gave a hakaf on Tish. I don't understand, so the Rebbe. A Yid was sitting over here, had the schus to take the Rebbe, the Shver, and bring him down from those higher levels where he is now, and he brings him down. I say, bring them up and Gashmi. And where does the Rebbe go? To you in your dream, and he tells you clearly what you have to do, and you still have a doubt. Du hast geschleppt im Schwer. Und ist zu dir gekommen. Bei dir noch ein Sofik. You brought him down. When you have a dream from the Rebbe, like the Rebbe, you're drawing him down, you're pulling him down from the high levels where he is. And you have to appreciate the fact that he allowed himself to be drawn down, and it came because he has to tell you what it is. Does this the Bocher? He did forget, I'm going to go into those protein. What was his zeicher? That the Rebbe comes from all from the Hecha Ilamis, and he tells him, Hedachayim, was mit Antalas Gotten. What is all this telling us, said before? The Rebbe is interested in helping each and every one of us, regardless of what the situation is. And we could go on and tell you. That has to make us realize and appreciate. We're not alone. We have someone watching over us. We have someone looking after us. Someone who wants to help us. But you have to allow it. He's not going to push you. He's going to advise you. You have to decide. I'm sorry for taking up so much time. But the after das auf Kreuz kommen von Asira B'Shvat. Asira B'Shvat says the Rebbe is as man from his kashrus. It's as man from strengthening to be connected more. We're all connected, but it should be in an open way. It should be in a practical way. Man soll sein als verbunden. You should feel yourself als verbunden mit dem Rebbe. People around you should see this as a Yid was as verbunden mit dem Rebbe. And that has to come out of a Farbrengen von Asira B'Shvat. But that kein Musar, but not telling people that the hair and the him, but that's what we are taught from El Terech Sidim, what we have to think about and what we have to discuss. So Eivish helfen that each and every one of us should absorb the Kedusha of Heintigen Tog, because the Rebbe in his letter that he wrote on his Shvat, Tov Shin Yud Aleph, a letter that he wrote, Likras Yom HaGodel VaHaKodesh Asira B'Shvat. The Rebbe said that Asira B'Shvat is Yom HaGodel VaHaKodesh. When do we say this expression, this title of HaGodel VaHaKodesh? You don't say it on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur you say Yom HaKodesh. You don't say it on Yom Tov. The only time we say Yom HaGodel VaHaKodesh is Shabbos, and when is Shabbos saved by the benching? In mitten Birchas Hamazon. Letzevach Litzeinu, the Yom HaGodel HaKodesh Hazeh. Says the Rebbe that Asira B'Shvat is a Godel VaKodesh. Shabbos is doch normal Mekom Medita VaKbola. That's why we come Sunday, we start again Yom Rishon. So Shabbos is elevated to Azman, this is Lamaylam, you call it Yis Vagbolas. Comes the Rebbe and said that Asira B'Shvat has that same title that we say about Shabbos has on Asira B'Shvat. Asira B'Shvat Yom HaGodel, what is not Godel? It's not more than 24 hours. It doesn't expand. So how do you call it HaGodel? The HaGodel means to say that it contains, it is incorporated, it has within it great things which another day doesn't have. It has in it such a level of Kedusha which other days don't have, not even Yom Tov. Because you don't say Yom Tov Yom HaGodel B'Kodesh, you say Yom HaKodesh. So Asira B'Shvat has so much inyanim from greatness, has so much inyanim from levels of Kedusha that you don't have. And who is it given to? To everyone over here. And you could absorb it within yourself. And the purpose of that absorption, that should strengthen one, sagt der Rebbe, mechazik sein ayid, as soll sich führen, wie man darf sich führen. He should he should live his life the way it's according to the way the Rebbe would will and so folgen. Bei Lesen Samar dann der Kundus was machazet tibir, bis ob nicht kein eigene Drosches, no one is saying his own ideas. Who are we to say eigene ideas? Was enemy? It's manish that we give over what we were zeichen to hear from the Rebbe, zeichen to hear from Welter Chassidim, from Junge Leit Chassidim, and this is what has to be the takon, this has to be the result of a Chassidische Farbrengen Asira B'Shvat, and we get then weg mit neue Kirches, we're going away with more Kedusha, we're going away with more Gedula, and that has to strengthen each and every one of us that we should do more and more, and better than we did till now, and that's what the Rebbe wanted always. Never satisfy yourself with what you have till now. Rebbe Yochanan Groner told us on Meissen that he was the secretary treasurer of the Chevre Gemilas Chasodim Shemesh Shabbos. And every Pasha Mishpotim which says in Kesef Talves Amni, where that is the source of giving Gemilas Chasodim, he used to go into the Frierdiker Rebbe to give a report of what was accomplished in the course of the last year. What was the report? How many people donated to the Kuppah? How many people took a loan? And what's more important, he said, how many people were able to repay the loan? And every year when he gave the Frierdiker Rebbe his report, the Rebbe gave him a big bracha. When the Rebbe took over and he asked the Rebbe to be the Manasseh, the Rebbe was a Manasseh, he comes the first year, Tov Shin Yud Aleph, Tov Shin Yud Beis, and he gave the Rebbe a report, and that report, it says, comparing it to the previous years, is more people donated, and more people took loans, and more people paid back, and he couldn't imagine what kind of bracha and a happy smile that you get from the Rebbe for this beautiful report. And he comes in, he tells us, and he gives the Rebbe the report, and the Rebbe looks it over, and the Rebbe's first words were, Rebbe Yochanan, mehr hat ihr nicht gekannt tun. You couldn't do more than that. Here he was expecting to get, he thought if he would have a pit to fall him with an angephone. And the Rebbe noticed. And the Rebbe said, I'll tell you my concept in life. My concept in life is never satisfy yourself with what you did till now. The Rebbe said in Yiddish, famous story that she told that in the city, and when it came to one point, they all came down. How did you do it? He said, when I came to that high point, I know I have to reach the top. Never satisfying what you do now. The Rebbe to Rebbe Yochanan, somebody had to try to do more and more. And that's what the Rebbe always told by the button. But we imbue to each and every one. Soll helfen, soll mir sicher sein zu his. You go, Leno. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ya ya lam, la 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 ya la lam, la 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 ya ya lam. Ay ya 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 ya. Ay 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 ay. La 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 la. Ay. חבר'ה, זוך לחיים. לחיים, לחיים. אורחים עיר He was upstairs in the kleine Zaal. The Rebbe, his name was Reb Moshe Garari. This Reb Moshe Garari, to stand in one place for 6 hours and to think Chassidus. Can stehen auf ein Platz 6 Stunden. The Rebbe asked to bring him a Masechta Sanhedrin. Took the Masechta Sanhedrin, the Rebbe opens it up, and after he finishes, he asked him that he may give him halten the Gemara. Maybe you ask, let me, so the sein schwer von Rebbe, it shouldn't be difficult for the Rebbe. And what did the Rebbe tell Reb Moshe? Reb Moshe, ob ihr halt, as es bin ich, is kein Sach nicht schwer. The Rebbe tells him, if you think that is something difficult for me, you're wasting your time sitting here. Because if I am, there is nothing difficult for me. That's what the Rebbe said. I heard it myself. I didn't have because I was standing next to the Rebbe. And these are the words what the Rebbe told the Ramesha. And right in the beginning, in Tov Shin Yud Aleph, how much the Rebbe was wanted, there's a Zayin Dayamun in the Rebbe. I have a son, Mendel soll sein gesund. At the bottom, that support the yeshiva in Kiryat Gat, have a shtickle problem. He invested a large sum, $5 million in a business in another country, hoping that that would bring in more. But unfortunately, the last half a year, he lost $3 million. What was lost, and maybe even add more, or in order not to lose these $2 million, he should take it out. And the Rebbe said, tell him, er soll gleich herausnehmen die $2 million. He invested also $5 million in that same business, in that same country, and he wants to know whether the answer that the Rebbe gave to this person is valid. So I went into the Rebbe, and I called my son. The next day I get a phone call from these people. How could it be? The same business, the same union. A number of months passes, and Mendy calls me, and he says, Tati, Abal Shemske Meise. To take out the $2 million. A few days later, he got a phone call from a friend of his who lives in New York. And the friend tells him, I have 4 different businesses, with each of them are very, very successful, Baruch Hashem. But I don't have the proper time to concentrate on each of the businesses in order to try to expand it. I want to sell one of the businesses, and because I will be relieved from the time for that business, I will be able to concentrate on the others. How much are you asking for this business? $2 million. Okay. And the Yid comes to him, and he said within 3 months, he made back his $3 million, and now he sees that this new business will bring him more money, even if the first business would have gone Keseder, it would not compare to what he's getting now, will get now. I said, but what's happening with the second person? He said, Tati, don't ask. Every day, he lost another $100,000, another $100,000, and he came screaming to me, I told you your father made a mistake. He felt I should have not listened to him, taken out the money. And Mendy tried to calm him down. He said, yesterday he came to me. He said, please call your father. In the last 2 months, things took a turn. I got back my $3 million, and I'll be able to make more. What happened over here? The Rebbe Geshem, that the first person, if he'll take out $2 million, he'll have where to invest it, and not only to make back the $3 million, but that will be a source to make even more than he would have had the original business. When it came to the second person, the Rebbe Geshem, he didn't see what he's going to do with $2 million. If he would have taken out the $2 million, it wouldn't have been a keli that if the business improved, it should elevate and make the... So therefore, the Rebbe told him he should keep it there, and eventually he made back the $3 million. So here, l'chayre, it's a contradiction one to the other, but we don't see what the Rebbe says. That's why the Rebbe said, when we're Pasha Vayechi, there's a very interesting thing what Yaakov Avinu teaches Yosef HaTzadik, Dr. Rebbe, how a chassid has to believe in a Rebbe. And that's what the Rebbe said. When Yaakov Avinu went, Sikul Es Yodov, he put his right hand on Ephraim, the left hand on Menashe. Comes Yosef Atzadik, you're making a mistake, my dear father. Who are what does Yaakov Avinu answer him? Yodaiti b'ni Yodaiti. I know. So the Rebbe asked, why did he repeat himself, Yodaiti gam Yodaiti? Yodaiti. And I'm doing what I know. Said the Rebbe that Yaakov Avinu was teaching Yosef HaTzadik how you have to believe in a Rebbe. Yaakov Avinu tells Yosef HaTzadik, Yodaiti, there are certain things that I understand, you could also understand. But I want you to know there's a v'gam Yodaiti. There are certain things that only I can understand and not you, and don't mix yourself. The Rebbe is telling Yaakov, telling Yosef HaTzadik, Nicht alles kannst du verstehen. We see things that you don't see. That's what happened over here. The Rebbe saw that this person was able to have their, the Gevente Vegam Yudaiti, and therefore the Rebbe told him that he should keep it, and he should take it out, he should keep it as a vitamin. And so we have many, many stories, and we get to different subjects, where people on the surface thought, who knows what, everything turned out in a proper way. There was a Yid that came to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he had a business, and the business was not the way it should be. And he wanted to sell the business. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, sell the business, but buy a new business of selling winter coats for men. I know, and what this is. He would never, but the Frierdiker Rebbe told him. So he sold the business, and he bought a business to sell winter coats. After a few years, Baruch Hashem, the business was expanded. And he always says, when the Frierdiker Rebbe told me, buy a business of winter coats, I didn't know what it is. Understand? You'll never understand, because you don't know what, as he said, the Vegam Yudaiti. And so, as though he was some gefolgt am Rebbe, man getalkt wie der Rebbe will. I don't like to mention his name. And he was doing big business, and they're learning a lot of knowledge. He didn't listen to the Rebbe, and he invested at that time a sum of money that today would be considered very considerable. Sof Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote to him, Mahayim v'holo, Kol ha-shelus minyoni panos, a Yid, Nishkin Lubavitch Yid. This wasn't Tovshin Yud Dalet. Some details. I come into the Rebbe, and I tell the Rebbe, and after the Rebbe reads my note, Oi b'yocholam zogen, und et nish folgen, v'zayna sach ärger for him. If I'm going to tell him, and he's not going to, and I told this young man on Meise from the Frierdiker Rebbe, was going to from him, how did you get it? He used to come to me and sit by me 2 hours, and he never asked my advice on business. To get to him that he's going to listen. Involved, the Frierdiker Rebbe opened up a Lubavitch Yeshiva in Chicago with 5 Talmidim Ashluchim. Once that, twice a week we should learn Tanakh. There was a Yid in Chicago by the name of Rebbe Yosef Flyer. He used to come every Rosh Hashanah, all the Medrashim. His life was Tanakh. The Rebbe asked Rabbi Weinberg, who was our Mashpia, to speak to the Rebbe Yosef, that twice a week he should give us a shir. So he was Mazkir. Monday and Thursday, from 3:30 to 5, he's going to teach us Tanakh. You want to take any money for it? Came the first week, he said, I'm going to learn with you, teach you Hosea. Tanakh Hosea. When you open up the first chapter of Hosea, it speaks over there that the Abish says you can hide under the big stones of the Sloyim, you can hide in tunnels, and wherever you're going to be, out there. And he wanted to teach us von Abish and kann man sich nicht behalten. So he chose, and this first Pedic of Hosea took three weeks to learn. We asked him that you were by the Rebbe and Tofrei Sadik. Tell us what happened then. So one day, he sits down and he says, Kinderlach, I'm going to tell you now a story, but on one condition. You have to assure me you're not going to forget the story. Okay, we'll try. He said when the Frierdiker Rebbe was in Chicago, he was there for 2 weeks. Every day, the Rebbe would sit for 8-10 hours receiving people. There was not a Yid in Chicago, Chosid, not Chosid, Frum, not Frum, that didn't come to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe accepted everybody friendly, and he gave them brochus and eitzes. I have a friend, to make Aliyah in Tofrei Sadik in 1930, was Mamash Mesiras Nefesh on all fronts, and ask him what you should do it. And the son says, no, The Lubavitch Rebbe is not going to allow me to go to Eretz Yisrael because he's anti-Zionist. He won't want me to go. He thinks I'm a Zionist. And you don't ask either. Tells us Rabbi Yosef that one day the Sid sits down with him and with two other people. He said, I went into the Rebbe and I told the Rebbe what my son wants to do. And I asked the Rebbe, what should I tell him? And the Rebbe tells me, tell your son, jetzt soll nicht fahren. Now he should not travel. Which means the Rebbe did not negate the whole concept of him going to Eretz Yisrael, but now is not the time. The father comes and asks these gentlemen, what should he do? He'll tell my son, he'll start screaming at me. So we told him, you have an answer from the Rebbe, it's for his favor, you have to tell him. He came back, we told the son got very angry, he said, nothing doing. Came the day, 275 people went onto the boat to go to Eretz Yisrael, and 10 days later, Lachman al-Itzlan, what happened? 275 people were lost. When he got off from the Sheva, this son, came into the Rebbe, and he said, Rebbe, I have a very serious question to ask you. You told my son not to go now. That means you saw the tragedy is going to be about the boat. Why didn't you tell 275 people not to go into the boat? You could have saved 275 people. And this Yid tells Rabbi Yosef, I'll tell you word by word what the Rebbe answered me, and I'll say it in Yiddish, because Rabbi Yosef made us write down, and we repeated it and we remembered clearly. And the Rebbe said like this, Gleibt mir, nicht allemol, wenn mir sagen etwas, wissen mir für was mir sagen das. Es ist mehr nicht, was mir geben über, was mir heißt uns mit Meilen. Gleib mir, ich habe das gesehen, keine Tragödie. Ich habe das gesehen, dass das Schiff geht getrunken. Mit mir geheißen, sagen dem Sohn, dass soll nicht fahren. Aber das wissen wir. Und nachdem es kommt heraus von uns, mehr darf man folgen. He tells him, believe me, not always when we say something do we ourselves know why we're saying it. It's merely that we are relaying this what we're being told from above. Believe me, I didn't see any tragedy of a boat going under. I was only told to tell your son not to go now. But one thing we know, once it comes out of our mouth, you have to listen, if not. So I tell the Rebbe, this is the story that I told this gentleman who came to ask. So the Rebbe says, no. So I gained something that I heard a new story over the Friedrich Rebbe, the Shvem, which I never knew before. So if he's ready to listen, you can ask the question. So I asked the question, and the Rebbe told me what to answer him. I call him up, and I don't hear any response. I say, Yankel, the Herskos Meret, you here? He says, yeah, please. Thank you very much. And hangs up the phone. 6-7 months later, I get a phone call. Leibel, Agresin Yashikeach. I said, what's the Yashikeach? You remember a few months ago I wanted to ask the Rebbe something, and you would not ask the Rebbe unless you got an assurance from me that I'm going to listen to what the Rebbe says. For that I'm giving you Yashikeach. Explain yourself. He said, when you gave me the answer from the Rebbe, when I asked, I thought, if I'm going to listen to the Rebbe at that time, in 1954, my business was worth $5 million, what at that time was a large amount of money. I was afraid if I'm going to listen to the Rebbe, I would lose the whole business. But I promised you, I'm going to listen to what the Rebbe says. Now that 6-7 months passed, I have to tell you, had I not listened to the Rebbe, I would have lost my $5 million. Now that I listened to the Rebbe, my business is worth $10 million. What did the Rebbe want over here? The Rebbe wanted that he should give up as on them of sich zu folgen, feel on the surface, but the man you can fall in $5 million and still I have to listen to a rabbi what's telling me to do the thing that the Rebbe did it for his sake. The Rebbe Emgevol tells him. When the Rebbe answers, he's trying to help the people, not Hashem machen schwer. And then we could go on and see what the Yaakov Avinu told Yosef, V'gam Yodaiti, they see things and they have things in Nochmer. They are Kiveya. When they say something, the Zach Ved, who Omar is Vayehi. When he says it, that is Zach Keton Hazem V'derevil Vil. And there are many, many situations that when he spoke out the words, Reb Shmuel told us on Meiser that there was once time by a Farbrengen, by the Rebbe Rashab, and there was Elter Choset sitting there, and the Rebbe Rashab started speaking to him very, very difficult language. Very difficult, Dr. Reb Shmuel. He gets Rashbatz, the Rebbe Rashab's Rebbe, Reb Shmuel Ben Salom, and he turns to the Rebbe Rashab, and said, Rebbe, when you say something, it's going to happen. You know what you're doing? You're saying such things. And what did the Rebbe Rashab answer him? Ich weiß, und fast sag ich, weil ich will soll sein als ich. I know, and that's why I'm saying it, because I want it to happen that way. As the Rebbe sagt, is who Omar? If the Rebbe says, it's Vayehi Vetus as I getan, against all things what you could think, against nature, against this. There was a chassid who came to the Rebbe, and he comes down and he tells you, I have to tell you what happened tonight. Before I left the Rebbe's room, the Rebbe tells me, you should be besimcha. So I asked the Rebbe, could I ask for a bracha? He says, of course. The Rebbe should give me a bracha, that the Rebbe should give me situations which is going to cause me simcha. Be besimcha. I should have for what to be besimcha. And the Rebbe gives me a big smile, and the Rebbe said, du bist gerecht? Amen. So I asked the Rebbe, can I ask another question? He said, Gesundheit. I'm asking that the Rebbe should say these words. And the Rebbe says, they geben the Metzias from Vosse sein besimcha. The Rebbe should say with his mouth that the Rebbe should give me those occasions, those situations from which to be the simcha. And the Rebbe repeated. The Rebbe, so they gave him the Metzias, what the word was, from Vosse sein besimcha. Ayir dot gahat emunah pshuta. As who Omar, as the Rebbe's looked as Vayehi. Reb Shmuel told us on Meiser that there was once, in the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, a Yid came to Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek. So he went over to him and asked him, can I know? Yes, I'll tell you. And the Maril says, I know exactly what my father's going to answer you. But we have to have that those words should come out of my father's mouth, because that's when it's going to happen. The Yid went into Yechidus, and he comes out, and the Maril asked him, no, what did my father say? Exactly what you told me my father said, what you saw my father's going to say. Maril hat gehalten, hat verstanden, hat als Werte, was der Rebbe sagt, namus Wertes, hu Oma Vayehi. As the Rebbe sagt Wertes, that's why you have to be very careful. When the Rebbe says something, don't try to play around with it. Without tongue and noise, because that's what happens if you change around. Chas v'sholem, who knows what could be. This is also part of the inyan was meret we're going to see Yud Shvat. How we have to be mekusher, how we have to accept. We have to put away aside all our understandings, all our feelings. If we are zeichen to get a direct hero from the Rebbe, and every one of us has direct hero, it's Kollel that the Rebbe gave in general, and when he gave individual. We shouldn't play around with it. That's for our benefit. That's for our way of growing and receiving everything that we have to have. May es wohl ewig helfen, als von Heinting als Yud Shvat, wie viel sie gewesen gut bis jetzt, sind gut in der Stock in Shir. We should strengthen ourselves more and more and follow more exactly what the Rebbe wants, and not to make any chokhmah. I'll be mavater over here, drop over here, and every minute change changes the whole picture. We find it in the Gashmistic sense. You make one slight change in something, the whole thing could explode. You have to have it do it exactly the way it's being told in the Leviathan. So the Eibisch helfen as a result was besessen zusammen, gechazert dem Rebbe's Werte, gechazert Sipurim von dem Rebbe, von the Chassidim, that should encourage each and every one of us that we should take upon ourselves to be more and more careful and more listening what the Rebbe says. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Meise wird Tov Shintes, das ist die Meise?
Ah,
Ihr gesagt, der Mann in der Meise von Tov Shintes.
die Meise von Tov Shintes. The Governor of Australia, Rabbi Abramson, he was the father of Rab Gutner. So one afternoon, I'm standing in the office, and Rabbi Abramson comes in. He said, I'm leaving tomorrow back to Australia. A few days ago, I sent in a letter to the... I had one shiloh or more than one shiloh. He said, I had a few shilohs. How did you present it to the shver? How did you put it? He said, I took a piece of paper, and I wrote shiloh al, shiloh base. He says, wie kommt ein lomnischer junger Mann als Eiton? I didn't understand what he was saying. He said, B'shas the Kohen had gedacht fragen in the Urim Betumim, sagt the Gemara, that he had to ask each shiloh independently, separately. You couldn't ask two shilohs at one time. If you'll sit down and put every shiloh on a different piece of paper, then you'll get your answer. That's what the Rebbe told him. So he sat down in the office, and he wrote on every shiloh another piece of paper, and he handed it to the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe, actually, the next day the Rebbe calls him, and he shows him on every shiloh, he got the Ksayat Kodesh, the answer from the Frierdiker Rebbe. What did the Rebbe say? Aber fragt beim Rebbe das Geshem Mishpat, Urim Betumim. And as every Urim Betumim you had to ask, so many people today, after they're listening, hearing what the Rebbe said, they don't put all the shilohs on one piece of paper, on one page. They write every shiloh on a separate page, as Olzaivi in the Urim Betumim, that we could give jeder shiloh bazunda. And here was a fact. When he wrote on one page, he didn't get any answer. As soon as he put it on separate pages, within the next 24 hours, he got an answer of all the shilohs. So this is one of the things that we mentioned before, that we can't fragen als mit dem all. You have to ask the Urim Betumim, you have to ask one question, get an answer, get another question, as I write them. That's one of the ideas that we see. What was interesting to me, als a Bocher, because bei uns gewesen a große Pelle, and the Rebbe should consider the Frierdiker Rebbe Urim Betumim. That was the Chiddush by me. And the Rebbe was also enough from Frierdiker Rebbe, and das as Rebbe the Urim Betumim, das ist mehr in the Geisius. To say on the Rebbe, das is Urim Betumim. I don't think any other people heard it before. And that's why I said the Rebbe is the one who revealed to us more things, how to, so to say, think about a Rebbe, approach a Rebbe, and as I write it, which you don't find in any of the Sichos on my modem from the Frierdiker Rebbe's. Only the Rebbe Rayatz hat das so geschrieben, but our Rebbe, and especially when you take out the Sichos from Tov Shin Yud, is. And what, there's one Sicha the Rebbe says, I'm still trying to digest it. I haven't seen how can I digest it. The Rebbe says that every chosid is part of the body of the Rebbe. Just like the Rebbe has a head, and he has fingers, he has a hand, he has a foot, every chosid is a physical part of the Rebbe. I understand what this meant, but that's what the Rebbe writes clearly. Kol chosid hu chelik mehaguf shel Rebbe. Chelik mehaguf. Not speaking about the neshama. Okay, neshama. You speak about abstract things. He's speaking about things on the Rebbe. Every chosid, his physical body, is a part, just like the Rebbe has a hand. So this chosid is part of his physical body. It's not when there are people who will be able to explain it. Yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm trying to understand it. I believe what the Rebbe is saying, no question. But I have to try to absorb it. It should become something which I can understand as much as you could. The Rebbe in those sichos and Megala Zach and Mamish was unbelievable what the Rebbe is and what the Rebbe's connection to a Yid and how much the Rebbe thinks about a Yid. So Mamish Lamaila Mekol HaGbolos. I told you the Maisa with this young man that had of Shabbos, his wife. The Rebbe is sitting Friday night and sitting and learning. One of the Tanoim, the conditions that the Frierdiker Rebbe made with the Rebbe before he took him as a son-in-law, that Friday night he has to be up all night and sit and learn. That was one of the conditions. The Rebbe is sitting in his house, and the Rebbe immediately sees what's happening, and the Rebbe said that he helped by thinking about how by being mispal, wherever it is. What's the pshat? The Rebbe is sitting and learning. When the Rebbe sees that this woman needs a bracha, and the Rebbe stops learning in order to think about her, in order to give her a bracha. We understand what that means. Here, a woman, a Yiddish kind. That's how the connection from the Rebbe is to everyone. In meeting learning, in meeting Friday night, in meeting everything, he'll stop and think about that person and try to help that person and give him a bracha, von dem ist geworden gesund. He's not thinking about it. It's almost an unbelievable situation. How much the Rebbe is devoted in teaching every one of us. Tracht van jeder eine Besonder. And he tries to help everyone. Do you have another person like that? Do you know the Meister when the Rebbe went 4 days in a row? The Rebbe one day received a request from a Lubavitch woman that she fell, and she heard her face. Schedule day for me to go to the AL. From the doctor, what the condition of this woman is. I called her surgeon. He says, now she could get along with 3 operations. Was? Sie darf noch haben 3 operations? I said, the doctor gesagt, nu, mit dem Vorgemacht noch einmal. The Rebbe went again. The doctor says, now she needs only 2 operations. The Rebbe went another time. The doctor says, now she needs only 1 operation. And the Rebbe went a 4th time. And the doctor said, now she doesn't have to have operations. Now let's figure this out. The day when the Rebbe went to the oil, the Rebbe did not eat all day. Only drank a cup of tea in the morning before he went to the oil. The Rebbe did not have his shiurim that he would have every day in his office. The Rebbe did not have the opportunity to answer people on their shilas that they need. The Rebbe went 4 consecutive days, starting from 11, 12 o'clock and coming back 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, in order to help one Yiddish kind, one Jewish woman, that she should not have to have even 1 operation. He gave up on his Gashmiyas. He gave up on his Ruchniyas. He gave up on helping other people, not answering them. Here's a woman that we have to spare help her. That's Avos Yisrael. I was once by Malam Malcolm with Polish and Ungarish Rebbeim, Rebbes. After the thing was over, they come home with a Leibel. They tell uns a master from Rebbe. Tell us a mice. I told them this story. They almost fell over. Azah Avos Yisrael, to give up so much for one person? Nicht essen und nicht trinken, nicht schlafen, nicht lernen, nicht lernen. Nicht lernen, aber nicht eben auf so weiter da ist es Ruhe. Wir verstehen das nicht. We don't understand what that means. But that was the Rebbe. And the Rebbe wanted, interested in every single individual. He would do everything that he could to help that person. And the Shala is, where is the reception? Where do we show our side of the Rebbe? Where do we reciprocate? Are we giving up of ourselves something to do what the Rebbe asked us to do? Are we ready to give up an union of not eating 1 supper or not going someplace in order we should go out from Mifsoyim? We should go speak to another Yid about something. Here the Rebbe is giving everything that he has for us, and let each and every one of us ask an honest question. Where is the upon him? Where's the reciprocation? How do we show the Rebbe that we appreciate what you're doing for us? Because we are trying in a small way, in a minute way, we're trying to imitate, so to say, also give up something. Are we ready to give up something from us, which is important, in order to help another person? Are we helping Cyber Geshem, Cyber Ruchnius? No, that's a chashayla. From the Rebbe, we want he should give everything up. We have to have the brokers, we have to have this, we have to have that. Yoga going and Nishkin Gessen, Yoga Gessen, that's important. We have to get the bracha from the Rebbe, we have to get the help from the Rebbe. No, and the Rebbe is ready to do it. Are we ready to do something? Are we ready to give up? That's what everybody has to ask. An honest question. It's negated. It's zwischen und dem Rebbe, it's zwischen und dem Eibischen. Nobody has to know about that question. But the question is a very valid question. It's a very, deep question. Are we doing something to a certain extent to show the Rebbe that we appreciate what he's doing for us, and we are reciprocating, we are trying in a certain way to do at least in a small measure what he is doing for us. That has to be the shayla. And those stuff, jeder in fragen bei sich alle Nacht bei Krishna, why did I give up today? The Rebbe gave up today, he wanted oil. The Rebbe gave up today, he didn't do his shiurim. He didn't answer people because he was busy taking care of us. What did I do today to give something up to do what the Rebbe said to do? That has to be part of Krishna Shalom meeting. And that's playing some verten. These are words what the Rebbe would want, that everybody, the Rebbe said he wants to be an example, a dogma of what means Abbas Yisrael. What means trying to help another Yid? What means to give up for another Yid? That's what the Rebbe wanted. Und das darf man mitnehmen mit sich von Asira bis Shvat. The day of the Rebbe's Nasi is what the Rebbe wanted from us. I'm giving this Musa Tzemnis and I and I ask and speaking to anyone individually. We're speaking about the Inyan way it's Negeya to each and every one of us. We speak in Kollel. And everyone that Herren was meret, zoklich gelegene Sachen, Nechazatibur, as I said before, we're saying things we heard from the Rebbe, we heard from Elter Chsidim, we heard from Mashpiyim, we heard from andere. Gute Sachen, was ist emesnike Sachen, so you repeat what you heard. L'chaim, l'chaim. Was wirst du tun, so spät bei Nacht?
What?
Was wirst du tun, so spät bei Nacht? Where you coming from? Where you the whole time? Was machst du? How are you? Sag noch rein.
What?
Sag noch rein.
Das ist ein Sohn von der Mutter Tove, von dem Schul.
Ja, ich weiß.
Gebeut dem Schul mit seiner Hand.
Ja.
Gepschute mit der Hand.
What did he buy?
Dem Schul, da.
Ja.
Mit der Hand, nicht mit der Hand.
Baruch Hashem. Bein Yerushalayim. L'chaim. There was a Yid, a man, that suddenly he had medical problems. Some of them were quite serious. The Rebbe told that family that if a situation arises during the night and you need a bracha or eitzah from my husband, whatever hour is going to be, you have permission to pick up the telephone and call. That was not only one. The Rebbe said that her house is 24 hours a day and night. Don't hesitate. If it's middle of the night, it's early morning. If you need something to have an answer as soon as possible, you have permission to do it. And one day, a few of us, so the Mazkir was sitting and we're discussing. So she tells us, mein Mann hat nicht übrigelos für sich a viel a versicherung. My husband did not leave for himself even such this amount. Als was hat weggegeben zu Chassidim. Everything that he possesses, he gave away for season. He didn't think about himself at all. His only concern, she says, going almost, wie kann ich helfen noch ein junger Mann? Wie kann ich helfen noch ein Yid? Wie kann ich helfen noch ein Mann? And wherever hour it was, she would give us permission to call and come. We, as secretaries, you would come home from the Rebbe's office 2 o'clock in the morning. We were willing to lay down for a while. 4 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings. A phone call from Eretz Yisrael. There's a woman who's having difficulty in having a baby. And the doctors want to make a cesarean. And without the Rebbe's permission, they won't do it. So I tell them, you know what time it's now? No, now it's 11 o'clock in the morning. I say, maybe by you in Eretz Yisrael. But by us in New York, it's 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Oi! But we had already a hirah from the Rebbetzin that is certain situations which need an immediate answer, you could call at any time. And we called the Rebbetzin. Either the Rebbe himself would pick up the phone to answer, or the Rebbetzin would relay the question to the Rebbe and answer. So I told one of my colleagues, you don't understand what's going on over here. It's the Rebbetzin that was up all night. And she is ready to pick up the phone at any hour of the day. She gave of herself to us. She didn't look at herself. She was ready in the middle of the night, whenever it was. The head was us meant. The woman didn't care about herself, just like she says about the Rebbe, that the Rebbe had some ganzen Ibi gegeben zu Chassidim. Here is sitting a woman. She doesn't go to sleep. When the Rebbe used to have yechidus, till 7 o'clock in the morning, she would wait himself. If I wasn't there, after him being up a whole night of Yechidus, und ihr weiß nicht, was Yechidus meint. You don't know what Yechidus is. No. All night, he would not take himself a cup of tea. So I waited for him to be up all night in order to have the cup of tea. The Mercedes Nefesh of the Rebbe's and Chassidim, for Yidden, where do you find that? They give it up and completely. It wasn't only once, sometimes it was 3 times a week, sometimes it was here, that for Yom Shlishi is angekommen in Lerech 1,700 Orchen. Believe Guzman, Bepel Mamish. I had them all the names written down on the paper, pointing in for that I want to see each and every one of them before they leave. So I told the Rebbe, I have about 1,800 people. How can I put them in one night? It's impossible. So what would you suggest? And ask me, here's my suggestion. But it should be al pi geirul. No one should decide who goes on the first. He wants it should be a geirul. So I made a geirul, and the organ came. This one picked up was Tuesday night, and this one picked up for Wednesday night. He came Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. The Rebbe started the Yechidus. When did the Rebbe finish Yechidus? 10:30 in the morning. You know what that means? From 8 o'clock in the morning. And I saw there's going to be a long line. So I asked the Rebbe, I want an intermission, the 7th inning stretch, as they call it today. He said, "Was willst du?" That the Rebbe should give me 15 minutes. I should give the Rebbe a cup of tea and a piece of cake. He says, "For was?" I say, because I see that the line is going to extend to wee hours of the morning, and the Rebbe should have something. He says, you don't hear how you're contradicting yourself. I didn't see what the Rebbe meant. He said, you're telling me that Yechidus is going to extend so far. Do you want, because of me, the Yechidus should finish 15 minutes later? You hear? 15 minutes later. Then the words of the Rebbe, Sinishlo ken tei, Sinishlo ken uga, no hefsik. Just continue. Shame. Comes 10:30 in the morning. I asked the Rebbe, I want to change from Wednesday night to Thursday night, the second Yechidus. Why? The Rebbe should have one night to rest. So the Rebbe says, many of the people are from the Eretz Yisrael Yidden will not be able to come back for Shabbos. Even the European people, maybe also not. That means to say that because of me, the families won't be together with their fathers and mother, with their close friends, and other Shabbos. Sunday is a work day in Eretz Yisrael. Because of me, that the Yisrael Yidden will lose more day of work. How does it come to your mind even? Betrachtst du afilu, as zu mir, weil die Mishpochas nicht sein zusammen in Shabbos, und zu mir, weil sie anwenden noch ein Tag. How do you... We started the second Yechidus, and when did it finish? On Thursday morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. Now make a cheshbon. Tuesday night from 10:30, from 8 to 10:30 is 15 hours, whatever it is, 14, 15 hours. Wednesday night from 8 o'clock till the, if you want to call it the Hanhogin, we see on every step. We're ready to go there. No, we're ready to do this. Oh, I'm so busy. I have to be with my family. Very real, solid question. He's the famous Meister with the Baal Shem Tov, which the Rebbe once told. In the time of the Baal Shem Tov, there was a Yid that lived in a city, and he was a very, very giving person. He helped a lot of poor people. One day, the grocery man came to his house. He said, I need 30 ruble alone in order to buy merchandise. So this Yid tells him, my daughter's getting married tonight. We have to do everything ourselves. There's no caterer. But today, of course, I don't have the time. This Yid went out a little bit despondent, but finally he found and got. As time went on, this person was losing his, so to say, his wealth, and this poor big Baal Tzedakah, what happened over here? And the Rebbe tells him, you remember that day? How long does it take to take 30 ruble to give a Yid? How long? Busy. So go on, Dr. Baal Shem Tov, the big tumult. This person is not worthy of having that bracha. We have to take it away from him. So they gave it to this Yid. How do I get it back? Then a few weeks after that, he found out that one of this Yid's children are getting married. He thought he'll come to the chassan, to the chuppah. He'll stand under the chuppah. He always says, give me, look, I'm so busy, I can't give it to you. Oh! So, comes a day, he comes, and here the father's coming with his son or daughter. Give me a shmek tabik. Oh, very good. Do me a favor. Hold my hand, my candle. He puts his hand in his pocket and takes out the pencil. And the Yid cholishes, he faints. He comes to the Baal Shem Tov and says, no, this is the story the way Chassidim told us. The Baal Shem said, no, this is as a klugib. He was doing a mitzvah. There's one mitzvah of holding under the arm, the Taz Zok Tatam. The Taz in Shulchan Aruch, Even Ezer, says, why do we hold the Chosin Kala under the hand? Schreibt the Tav, we have made a Toma, suddenly they'll have Charota, they want to run away. Sure that the Chas will take place. The Inyan von der Licht is am Ende Yisrael, so sein Lichtigkeit. Said the Baal Shem Tov, der Yidot, they can't sagen, no Isik be Mitzvah, Potamen a Mitzvah. I'm doing a Mitzvah. So he asked the Baal Shem Tov, how can he get back? The Baal Shem Tov said, I'll find a way for you. He called in the Yid and he told him the ganze Meise. So the Yid said, I'm ready to do. He said, you give him half of your Ashiris and half mine, but you know, say weiter. What did this Meise tell us, Dr. Rebbe? The Eibishter is a Yedei HaKol. He knows that a person is busy. So whatever it is, do me a favor, help me with this. Oh, you see, I'm so busy. Come tonight after. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mazkir, he gave you an opportunity that you should be. He knows you're busy. He knows that you have to do something. And still, Protis, he presented you. Mit dir gebracht am Mitzvah, tu der Mitzvah gleich. Altach Mitzvah, etz am Matzes, altach Mitzvah, etz am Mitzvahs. What the Rebbe did, the Rebbe gave himself. He didn't say push away, come tomorrow, come the other day, he did it right away. He took, a Yid came in and needed something, he'll take it on. How many times did the Rebbe call a sin? The Yid of him, realize how much the Rebbe did to help other people. It was between Mazkir and the office, nicht allemaal mit hetzelfde, but nicht gewollt man soll erzählen, behind erzählt man doch schon alles. The Rebbe was ready at every moment to help somebody. He was going to erzählen, like Meises was going to glauben. What, if the Rebbe would send a shliach over here, he send a shliach over there, which the shliach didn't even know why he's going there for, what he has to do over there. It was one day that the Rebbe said, call up the shliach, he has to take the first plane out of the that the airline said that all the planes are full and it's supposed to be 2 hours later. I went into the Rebbe, so the Rebbe says, call the airline, not the agent, call the airline, because sometimes the Rebbe says they hold places. So I told this young man, called the airline. They called back. The airline said all the places are full. So the Rebbe says, Zogim, that he should wait 15 minutes. I just got a phone call from the airline that somebody canceled his flight, and being that you told us it's so busy, we're giving it to you. So here you have it. I went back into the Rebbe and I told him. And this is what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe gives a big smile. The Rebbe had gewollt, dass muss fahren. Ein Jid, komm ihm wie ein Goy, who knows? Had verstanden, what's the Rebbe telling us? About the boss. Had gewollt, that the Jid, he runs the show. Führt durch, muss darf durchführen. Bepel Mamish, wenn man sagt, that the Lukus is over, you can untop the Lukus as your hands to a certain extent. Man sagt, es Bepel Mamish, gewaltig in Jonem. Al Capone Leno. I'll walk against the first. Just fill you with one small incident. There's one day that Rabbi Weinberg Shalom came to the office in the middle of the day. And he said he has a very, very important settle to give over to the Rebbe. So we told him, well, we had an instruction that day that from this hour to this hour we shouldn't disturb the Rebbe. And then we have, well, if you leave it here, he said that the person needs the bracha right away. So he went and he put it through the door, the zettel. And then he thought, what did I do? I caused the Rebbe to bend down and pick up the zettel? What? So he went and he wrote a note to the Rebbe that I'm asking him a chilul for the Rebbe, that I caused the Rebbe to bend down and pick up. What did the Rebbe answer him? I thought that is my purpose in life, to pick everybody up. That's what the Rebbe did, and that's what the Rebbe helped us. And he's doing it to this very day. We didn't go into the whole situation, what's happening now after Gimel Tammuz. Things that are happening today, which fremde Yidden, freemen that have no shaykhs to Chabad, to have no chayses, or we don't even know if they have shaykhs, the other than Yonam also. They come, boys. Wherever they come, Goyim come. Rebbe Yoel Shalom told us on Ma'asen. He was once standing at the oil, and a black couple comes into the oil. He waited till they came out. He asked them, what is the problem? They said they have a 30-year-old son that was going on his motorcycle, and he asked, how do you come here? So they told him that when the rabbi used to speak, and they had it on the TV, we used to watch when his speeches. So we felt that we want to come to the rabbi to get a blessing. So smile. So Binyamin asked them, what is this? They said, you won't believe. The day that we came to the rabbi, the doctors told us they don't know if there'll be another day. That's how critical the situation was. We decided we're going to try our best, and we came to pray by the rabbi. We came the next day. The doctors told us that there's some because now he's able to walk, he's able to do everything, he's almost completely healthy. So we came to thank the rabbi for his blessing. Goyim, kommt der Rebbe, und kommen jeden Goyim mit Almuna Pschutte, als ich glaube, der Rebbe kann helfen, und wir kommen zum Rebbe, und der Rebbe geht abbrochen, und sagt, komme, bekomme, Sipurim, that we know from nicht kein jüdischer Mensch, full of all different types of people. Lately, in the last few months, we see very, very modern Jewish people coming to the oil for one reason or other. They come with shorts, and they come with a halbe hemdel, and they come to head, they come to hin, but they all come into the Rebbe's oil, with a tillin, with a pestel, with a zettel, and a hin, and they're very, very happy. Alles viel zu von dannen. Und man darf helfen, man darf sehen, man soll folgen, was man sagt. Each one should ask himself. There was a Balshuva Bocher. He was 17, 18 years old. He was, after a half a year, he was able to learn Gemara himself. I knew him very well. I was very friendly with him. He was learning Chassidus. One day he comes into the office and he sits down and he's crying. And I didn't get an answer from the Rebbe. What do I do? I said it could be that there's something that you have to change, you have to correct, you have to add. So write and settle to the Rebbe. that you understand the reason there's no answer because you have to correct something. So the Rebbe should have Rahmanas on you and tell you what to do in order to get an answer. So he writes the zettel. I take it into the Rebbe. He writes on the zettel, Zekvashan Osayim, Shalezochisi Lamana. I have 2 months. On the bottom, the Rebbe writes, Bilti Muven, B'meshech Shenosayim Eilu, Kotavti Arba Michtovim Kloliyim, Ube'im Lemdim HaMichtovim Be'oifim Proti, Timtze Meinish letter. Says the Rebbe that in those letters there are answers for individual people. And if you're going to learn those letters properly, you will find answers to all your questions. When the Lebanon war in Lebanon started, so Dr. Mendel was by the Rebbe on a Thursday or Friday. So the Rebbe said, visit with the Makamis, and he comes back on Sunday and he says, I don't see anything. Come, let's learn together. So we sat down, me with the Rebbe. We didn't iron a hat on your hair, we took out the sefer, we cooked, and we didn't see any connection to the Milchemes Lebanon. That afternoon, Dr. Mendel had to be by the Rebbe to get dictation. He knew what happened. He says, I told the Rebbe what we did, and I told the Rebbe that we don't find any answer. And the Rebbe says, Vos bin ich schuldig? Brecht die Kep, that is then as a dot klare emphasis of them the Meiser. What am I at fault? Break your heads, and you will see that in this letter there are answers to the present situation. Oh, but the Rebbe says that in this letter, what is the pshat? The Rebbe was trying to tell us that he's trying to give us ideas and understandings of every situation that's taking place. It all goes back to the original statement that the Rebbe was everything, and the Rebbe addressed himself and gave of himself to help in every situation that took place. And the Rebbe gave everything that he could. So the Rebbe should help him, was on Sachen redden wegen dem,